The metagame of Marvel Snap has been a source of frustration for players of all skill and collection levels. Due to its lack of diversity and its frustrating play patterns of having the same kind of two decks at the top of the meta, the result is that casual players and more engaged players alike find themselves bouncing off the game and being less interested in playing. Marvel Snap and its development team Second Dinner had to remedy this, and in this video we're going to be discussing how the over-the-air update system that they have devised, that they're going to be experimenting with all through April and May, will kind of really revolutionize the excitement around Marvel Snap and how it can change Marvel Snap going forward in the future. Beside me here we have the announced changes that Second Dinner is going to be implementing in Marvel Snap. Now what's beautiful about these changes is that they're going to be very specific in how they target the nerfs and buffs, but primarily they're saying they actually are targeting buffs on a regular basis, which I think is super important. Nerfs are kind of interesting in one way because they help bring balance to the game, but buffs can really help cards re-emerge in the meta that might have been kind of like off on the wayside a little bit and provide new archetypes a chance to shine. So I think a lot of people are really interested in the buffs, but most importantly, we're getting this every single week. 2 to 4 cards a week being adjusted, and that's very significant in a card game. In fact, it's a frequency that's really rare. If you think back to what Hearthstone was like, we'd go months with Dr. Doom going absolutely insane. Is it Dr. Doom or Dr. Boom? Now I'm getting confused with my games, but Dr. Boom, right? And the Boom bots. Basically, they just reigned supreme forever until they eventually got worked on, right? So, I mean, it's very, very good to see that Second Dinner is recognizing that frequent updates, even if they're minute, can have an immense impact on the meta. Now this is so important because the metagame has a tremendous impact on people's enjoyment of the game, regardless of their skill level. If someone's a casual player and they want to play Marvel Snap, they don't want to go against Shuri deck after Shuri deck after Shuri deck like they had been over the last 2 months. It can't happen. And I think that Second Dinner recognized that their current system of kind of releasing patches, once a month or once every 2 months wasn't sufficient enough. And we had been clamoring as a community for the opportunity to have constant updates, weekly updates. We talked about it on the Snapchat with Cozy, and it's funny because I actually thought to Cozy, I said, I think that might be unrealistic. Like, can we really expect Second Dinner to make balance patch changes every single week? Second Dinner stood up and said, hell yeah, we can, and here we are, which I think is incredible because it's going to help the longevity of this game moving forward. With that being said, we have to give kudos to the development team Second Dinner because for almost every game out there, weekly updates is a pipe dream, let alone a card game. Like, this is a pipe dream for many people, and we're actually living it as they experiment with this new over-the-air update system. So, I mean, this is something that players have been clamoring for, and it's great to see that it actually is coming to Marvel Snap. This is something that we wanted, we had asked for, and even though it was like somewhat unrealistic, they're making it a reality, and I think that's an absolutely fantastic thing for this game and for the entire community moving forward. The thing that I love the most personally about this over-the-air update system is that it's going to allow for the buffs to really have an impact on the meta. Yes, we need nerfs, but I think buffs are what are most interesting because they're going to elevate archetypes, elevate cards, and elevate decks to allow them to be viable at all stages of the metagame. Whether you're trying to rank up from 40 to 55 to 70 to get your variant, or you're trying to go from 70 infinite, when there are buffs happening, new archetypes, new decks become viable. And most importantly, and I think this is huge and something that goes understated, like we all want to rank up, we all want to be competitive and play, but the decks we're facing are really important as well. So when you have more viable decks, that allows your game diversity to increase because you're not just going to play against Shuri and Thanos over and over again. You're going to be playing against much more diverse decks, which makes the game more fun. So I think that's something that a lot of people sleep on. The diversity of the decks you face is important to the overall experience, and I think that these over-the-air updates are going to accomplish exactly that. One of the most important challenges that Second Dinner has to balance, pun intended, is that if you make too many changes too fast, you start to alienate the more casual player. So they have to find a balance between, okay, how do we make it so that the more engaged player, the competitive player, is getting the changes they need, seeing the diverse meta, and not getting frustrated with what they're seeing, while also not outright confusing the casual player who has built a deck and has been playing the same long-going list since beta, and all of a sudden turns on their game and the cards are completely different and they don't know what's going on anymore, right? That's not a good thing, especially when you're going a week-to-week change. So I like the idea that they can make the stat changes week to week. However, the major patch VFX changes can only happen on larger patches. That's kind of important, right? Because if a player is experiencing like a complete diversification of their deck list that they go to every single time as a casual player, and the cards they're relying on don't do what they used to do, that could be super frustrating. And although we, as hardcore players, like we don't tend to really want to admit it, I'm going to tell you that the casual fan base is super important for the health of this game. We want casual players to have a positive experience. We want them to play the game. We want them to buy the bundles. We want them to want to play Marvel Snap, okay? So ensuring that they have a positive experience really helps with the longevity of the game. One minor concern I have, and this is a minor one because overall this is a huge net gain for everyone playing Marvel Snap, is that like, yes, we're going to have weekly balance changes, but I do want people to kind of give some consideration to the fact that we want to give the meta a chance to find itself a little bit at times, right? Like, for instance, with Shuri, the thing that was frustrating about Shuri is that the tech and the answers we had for Shuri were not particularly effective against it, right? The armor and the kind of Cosmo protecting from Shang-Chi into like a Taskmaster, which was very difficult to predict, made the Shuri-based gameplay experience very challenging, difficult, and frustrating, right? We had the tools, but they felt ineffective. Now, in future metas, hopefully, even if a card or a deck archetype starts to overperform, hopefully we have a chance to say, okay, well, this is where Shadow King steps in here. This is where Valkyrie becomes popular. And I think that focusing on allowing those tech cards to shine as well can help counter what you're experiencing in the meta, because everything should have like a rock, paper, scissors type feel to some extent, right? Like that's kind of what Shuri was lacking, right? Our scissors were a little dull to cut the paper of Shuri, and so it was very inconsistent. And I think that having an opportunity to allow the meta to sort itself out is important too, because we need to be able to have that counterplay. We can't just like lose to a deck and say, we need the nerf now, right? We got to allow that chance to counterplay. But these over-the-air updates really help to kind of ensure that the Shuri meta doesn't happen again, where it's months of the same garbage over and over and over. It allows us to have the opportunity to counter with our tech cards, and then if the tech cards don't do the job, we can buff the tech cards, or we can nerf the deck archetype that's causing a problem. Either way, ultimately, the metagame remains fresh, and I think that's important for all players. Perhaps the thing I'm most excited about overall is just how impactful a single power or two difference can be for some of these cards. Like, Crystal does not see any play at all, and there's a potential that Crystal could have a reemergence in the meta if it just had a little more power, right? If it just had a little more power. How about Nick Fury? Could Nick Fury kind of be a new badass card that ends up in everyone's Devil Dinosaur decks and beyond simply because it gets another power too? I think it could, right? And we've all lost games by one power, right? We've all been there. And so like we can't sleep on the impact of one or two additional power. And those over-the-air updates, yes, they can't save Angel. They're not going to save Uati. We're going to have to wait for the big patches for those. But there have been so many metagames, honestly, that have been so stale simply because some cards were just overtuned. And you can't discredit how impactful a single point of power nerf can be. Just look at what it did to the kind of pre-bounce meta of Angela and Bishop. Bishop was like the premier 3-cost for a very long time in beta and beyond, and then when it went from 3-2 to 3-1, one power, it fell off completely. And then you had Angela as a 2-1 to a 2-0. Again, it was the card to include in almost every deck at the game's launch. Gone completely. One power is significant. So we can't really sleep on the potential impact that these over-the-air updates can have, especially on cards that like aren't seeing play. And that's what I'm most excited about. I know a lot of people tend to focus on the nerfs because like it's the cards that are overperforming that can be frustrating. But guys, these buffs that are coming, the opportunity to buff cards that need a bit of love, that is huge. That's going to have a huge impact on the meta and really generate a high diversity of decks that can be viable to help you get to Infinite. Another key component that I think is going to be saving Marvel Snap moving forward, especially for the casual players, is that you're going to have 2 pulses of interest in Marvel Snap every week. You have that Thursday balance update, which I think is huge. It's going to shake up the meta nearly every single week. This is fantastic news. And then you have the new card release earlier in the week as well. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Alex, no one cares about the new card releases. The acquisition model sucks. No one cares that a new card's coming out because no one can actually play it or get it. I hear you. And that, my friends, is probably a topic for another video and the next thing that Second Dinner has to resolve. Because, I mean, if we can fix that, if we can fix the balance weekly, and if we can make the new cards coming out weekly actually exciting and engaging, then we have ourselves a game that's going to be keeping people engaged, having fun, and most importantly, having a diverse meta that keeps people coming back over and over. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to have a game that we experience fun with and just engage with in a healthy way, which I think is what Marvel Snap's ultimately striving for as it leans towards its final PC launch, hopefully later this year. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. It was a fun video. I like these videos, having a chance to just like talk to you casually about, some of the stuff that's coming out of Marvel Snap. I appreciate it. I got a video for you, somewhere on the screen. I don't know where I'm going to put it. But anyways, I got a video for you. Check it out if you want to see more, and we'll see you in that next Marvel Snap video.